Hello, Michael Wells here from PCT. This is just a presentation for those looking to improve the productivity of their fields by increasing the clay content in the surface. As we know, there's various techniques available to us, including clay spreading, delving and spading, but it's often difficult to know where to apply each of these practices for the best benefit in the field and to be most cost effective. Traversing the field, often the soil surface colour doesn't change greatly and doesn't really provide much guide on where each practice should be applied. So this discussion is going to be looking at some of the precision ag techniques that are available to you to try and help you with your decision making. So here we've got an EM survey that's been conducted across the field. The way an EM survey works is the instrument's towed behind the ute with the GPS, and as it moves along it sends a signal into the soil which is a bit of an indication of changes in the soil conditions. And fortunately, for those making decisions about clay spreading and delving, one of the things that drives the EM the most is the amount of clay in the profile. So the EM survey acts as our eyes to look below the soil surface, give us an indication of where there's clay and perhaps a guide of where it may be closest to the surface. But the computer map can't do it all for us. We still need to visit the field to see what's happening in the real world. So that can be done by loading your EM map onto PCT AgMap software, and you can just use the GPS in your iPad to navigate over the field and take some observations. And this can be done just by digging down to observe what's happening down through the profile. In this case, however, we've got some soil cores, which you can see on the left. Some are deep sand all the way down, and then as we move towards the right, we've got increasing clay content, and more importantly, we can see differences in how far it is below the surface. So armed with this information, we can then go back to the computer and build ourselves something which is going to be a little bit more useful for our decision making. So now we're looking at a depth of clay map, and in the absence of a colour scheme, the white areas are where the sand is deepest and the clay is probably out of reach of delving, through to the dark brown areas, and this is where the clay is closest to the surface. And what's interesting with this particular field is that intuitively we expect the tops of the sandhills to have the deepest sand all the way across, but we can see here that's not always the case, and sometimes some of these lower lying areas have deeper sand and some of the higher areas actually have clay closer to the surface. So now we know a little bit better where that clay is and how far it is below the surface. We can then decide a plan of where to apply each practice. So now in the red areas, we know that we can confidently go in clay spreading, know that the clay is too far below the surface to be effectively pulled up with a delver. In the green areas, however, this is where the clay is closer, within reach of the delver, and we know that this is probably the optimum practice within this territory here. And in the dark blue area, no decision needs to be made at all because the clay is closest to the surface.